Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar of this morning. We apologize for the delay that we had. We're happy to see that you're still connected. I hope you can still hear and see the presentation. So apologize for the delay. The webinar is still going on. The webinar is about the CENELEC drafters and a refresh on how to get started with drafting your CENELEC standards. So thank you very much for joining. My name is Else, and I'll be moderating the webinar in the background. You're all muted during the presentation, so you cannot speak out loud, but you are invited to submit your questions in the Q&A panel that you should be able to see on the screen. The webinar has been recorded as well, so we will share with you the presentation and the recording afterwards, so you can also possibly share it with some colleagues should you want to do so. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Amy. Please, Amy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Els. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us and thank you for joining us this morning. Today will be a very quick refresh on how to get started with your drafting. So nothing too in detail, just a few key points to keep in mind when you do start. Really just a few resources, so ways to improve and be more efficient with drafting your standards from the very beginning. So we'll do things a bit differently today. So I'm going to talk you through some questions, what we want you to ask through the course of today's webinar. We'll then talk about getting started, what you need and why you need it, the simple template and the quick start guides to go along with it as well. We'll talk a little bit through the CENELEC boss content as well. The internal regulations part 3, so why these are so important and some important things to remember from it as well, and where you can find them, of course. And then at the end, hopefully you'll send us lots of questions and we can get those answered for you live. So your questions, what do we want you to ask today? So I'm joined with Gonzalo, who's ready to answer questions with me as well. But we want to hear anything related to drafting. So drafting questions, how do I get started, which of course we'll cover today, but maybe you have something else you'd like us to cover. IR3, timeframes, what do I need to submit? Anything like that. Any burning questions that you have, send those in. We won't be handling any OSD related questions today, certainly not live. But if you do have them, you can send them in. We will pass them on to the relevant colleagues who will be able to respond to you. So please still ask them. We'll keep a copy and we'll send those on. Otherwise, for OSD related questions, you can check the link on the screen as well. So you'll receive this with the recording of the presentation and the slides too. So you can check that out for any questions that you might have. But for the purposes of today, we will be discussing those of you who are drafting with Word and PDF still. So nothing OSD related today. So let's get started. So where do you begin when you're starting out with your drafting? So what do you need to get started first? First of all, you need to identify which deliverable you are drafting. It goes without saying. So you have a European standard, an EN. You have a technical specification, a TS. You have a technical report or a TR. And you have an amendment, so that's referred to as AMD for today. Of course, I am referring to homegrown amendments, so that's amendments that are amending or modifying an already published standard. So we're not talking about anything parallel today, nothing like that, just anything homegrown. Why is this important for you to identify? It just determines the rules that you follow, and it determines the template that you need, and I'll talk about this on the next slide. So the rules for many of our deliverables, in fact, all of them, IR3 does apply. It's the main set of rules that you have to follow. So for EN, TS, and amendments, apply IR3. TRs are slightly different. IR3 still applies, but we have the added rules that there are no requirements, no recommendations, and no permissions in there either. And this is something that we do check quite stringently as well. So we will check this before we even accept the text officially. We just do a very quick check for those keywords, so shall, should, or may. And we just make sure that there's no requirements, recommendations, or permissions in there. It does have to be an informative statement of fact document. So make sure you bear that in mind when you start to draft your TRs. But otherwise, the only thing you need to know is IR3 applies to the rules. Now, the template that's available to you is the CENELEC simple template, and this is for the ENs, TSs, and TRs. On the Sen side, we have created a simple template for amendments. Now, this is something we're developing for the CENELEC side. If you'd like to be a guinea pig, if you'd like to test that out for us and you're interested in doing that, you're more than welcome to go download the simple template for amendments. Try it out. Let us know if it works. Let us know if it's interesting for you, if it helped, if it didn't help, if it's completely trash. Let us know what you think, and then we can actually solidify it and have it as a resource available for you on the CENELEC side as well. So please bear that in mind. But the CENELEC simple template for the other deliverables is what you need to get started. So before you start drafting, you have two options. Either you'll draft fresh new work or you'll revise something. So for fresh new work, that implies that there is no previous deliverable that is being revised. It's something entirely new. You're drafting from scratch. And we would like that you use the CENELEC simple template for this. So you might hear it referred to as well as the standard template. You draft directly into this using the styling rules. So there's nothing previous. You're starting from scratch. You use the template. If you're doing a revision, you've got a previous publication that forms the basis of that new draft. So something's already published, you're revising it, you don't want to start everything from scratch. You're going to take the previous publication as the basis. If that was published before 2017, 2018, that kind of time frame, we're very sorry we can't be more exact, but that kind of time frame, we ask that you take the previous publication and copy paste it into the simple template as you go through that revision, for a number of reasons that we will get into shortly. So for revisions specifically, and for drafting your formal vote text after the inquiry stage, we ask that you please use the text CCMC edited. This is so important. It's an obligation, regardless of anything else. You have to use the text that CCMC edited. It's available via projects online at the moment, only for TC secretaries. Only TC secretaries have access to the previous version of the text. What this does is it helps us to retain the edits that we made at the previous publication stage, which most of the time are very useful, but also for formal vote stage, it helps us keep everything we did at inquiry stage, meaning we can really just focus on the content at formal vote stage, so we can have a beautiful standard at the very end. So when you click this is of course just for TC secretaries. When you go to fetch your text, this can be quite overwhelming. So to simplify it, what do you need? The pre-draft aspect here, so if we look at the draft for second inquiry, so this first row, the very first text, this inquiry E, this was what we submitted to translation after we edited. The interesting one for you will be this one down here. So the text submitted by CCMC2 inquiry, this is what we launched. So for your formal vote drafting, this is the text that you will need to go and fetch and work on. For your revision, for inquiry when you're revising something, you're going to want to go all the way down here to the very bottom row where we see definitive text. So here we've got the e-version, so the doc and PDF. You're going to take those, and those are going to form the basis of your revision. So that's very important for you to remember. Always take the correct text. If these links aren't working for whatever reason, or you're simply not sure, write to production@cenelec.eu and we can send you the correct text as well. But please do try this as a first port of call to fetch the correct one. But why do I need all of this? Why is this important? So the simple template equates to simple drafting. So the simple template or the standard template includes all of the IR3 rules and layouts, provides drafting guidance and direct in-text interpretations as well. So you don't have to think too much about what IR3 is actually permitting you to do, but also asking you to do. It's all in there for you, as well as full styling, which is more to help out your editors than anything else, but it does serve a small purpose for you too. What purpose does it serve for you? It avoids delays with IR3 interpretation. So if you interpret something one way and it's maybe not the correct way, you're covered. It avoids those lengthy conversations and any conflicts about what IR3 is actually asking and that kind of thing. It also avoids any nasty surprises with exactly how your text will look. Because we know many people spend hours and hours making it look beautiful, only for the editor to come along and restyle everything, and then it's a bit of a surprise for you because you think, what happened to my text? I spent all this time. So you'll see exactly how it will look once your editors have handled it. It's very simple point and click styling. So you type something in or you copy paste, you click on the portion of text and you click a style and it's done. That's it. It also avoids any potential for rejected texts at incheck, at least from the styling perspective and the template perspective as well. So it keeps everything nice and standardized, which is what we want for European standards. Now, if anything doesn't work within the template, we can still work with it because it's in the template. If something is wrongly styled, you haven't understood something correctly, something's not clear, we can still work with that as editors. It takes us much less time to fix a template style than it does to try and fix something that's outside of the template. So even if you're not fully aware of what you needed to do, we'd rather you just use the template and get it wrong than not use it at all. So please bear that in mind. But we are aware that many of you are technical experts and you don't really have the time to focus on this type of aspect. So we've tried to be as helpful as possible to remove the burden of trying to standardize that layout and asking you to do the styling. It's all done for you. You're also then free to focus on that content. You don't need to spend your time elsewhere. So it saves you time, saves you stress, also saves your editors time and saves us stress too. So it's really helping us to help you, to help us, to help you. It's a nice vicious circle, if you like. So the simple template and quick start guide were created by your editors for you with in mind. The template is, as I've said, a downloadable Word document. You type straight into it with no fuss. There's no need to fiddle with any add-ins, macros, there's nothing to install. It's just a downloadable Word document and it's ready to go as it is. It is a fantastic resource. We also have a quick start guide that goes with it. And this is a downloadable PDF file and it covers how to use the template, which styles you need to use and when you need to use them, and then some tips and tricks that your editors use every single day because we are experts and pros at Word at this point. And we've given these tips and tricks for you so that you can use Word as efficiently as possible. So it's worth taking a look through just for that, I think. Now for the CENELEC Boss drafting content, this is another fantastic resource that we have. It is a one-stop shop for quick drafting guidance, and quick is the important word here. So it's drafted and kept up to date by your editors. We look at this constantly, we check it, we regularly assess it to see if anything has changed, if we need to modify something, update something. It is a beautiful resource and it has all of the links that you will need for drafting. So we're going to take a very quick look together. So please do go through this in your own time in a bit more detail. It's a fantastic resource, as I've said. Just for today, I'm going to show you that it's there and it exists. So how do we get there? We're on the CENELEC Boss site here. This is the homepage. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have reference material. We're going to click there. We then have a few options. We're going to go to guidance documents, or on the left-hand menu too, you have the option. We then have drafting guidance. Click, click. We scroll all the way to the bottom and we have preparation and submission of files. So this seems like a very long web page. It's just got everything that you could possibly need to get started, basically. So if we start on the right-hand side, we've got a link to the internal regulations part 3, very important for you. We have the figures supplement. So figures are optional in CENELEC. You're not obliged to provide them to us, but if you do have them, and if you would like to provide them to us, there are rules that you have to follow in order to do that successfully. So we provide that for you. And then, of course, you've got that simple or standard template as well right there. You just click, it's going to download itself as a Word document. You're good to go. So this web page really does contain everything that you will need to know. So it starts off with the components needed to have a successful submission. So the revisable format of the text in Word, your clean, non-revisable PDF, optional individual separate figure files with a link to that submission, to that supplement, sorry. Then if it's harmonized, the special rules that you have to follow with that. Checklists as well, so everything that's a link It's clickable, downloadable links, submission interface as well, a link to that. And then it goes through naming conventions. It's really, really beautiful. So do take a look at this in depth. What's interesting for the drafting itself is clause 3. Here we go through a very light overview of IR3, just so that you can pick the most important elements in a pinch. We also, which is very interesting, we give you the exact place in IR3 where the more detailed rule is. So the downloadable link for IR3 is right here, and then the exact clause. So we give you the what up here, and then we give you the where right here. Very interesting. We cover everything, all of the most important things, formulae, inclusive language, what to do when you've finished as well. And if you have any problems, you have production email here too. Take a look over this in your free time. It's a very, very useful resource. As I've said, the editors keep this up to date as well. So it's worth taking a look through, bookmark it, save it, do what you want to do with it. So back to our presentation. A little on the internal regulations part 3. So you can find this if you go to your boss site, you go to reference material, reference documents. It's right there. You've got all 4 parts available to you. We're interested in part 3 for the drafting. So the key things, we know IR3 is very long and often very filled with grey areas that make it a bit difficult to interpret. So it's the editor's role to know this document by heart. And we help you to understand and apply the tricky bits because it can be very tricky sometimes. It's very vague and it's not so clear what it's allowing you to do, but also what it's actually telling you to do or forbidding you to do. So that's where we come in. As I've said, it applies to all deliverables. It was overhauled in 2017 completely, with minor updates in 2019, and I believe very small ones in 2022 as well. So it goes without saying, if you have a deliverable that's being revised and the original was published before 2017, the new IR3 will apply. We do get some comments saying, but it was published in 2010. It should be okay. New IR3 is available, new IR3 applies. So just be aware when you start that drafting that you are using the up-to-date one. And as I've said before, all of our guidance is based on this, our webinar series from the previous years, the templates that I've shown you today, the boss, it's all covered on IR3. If you take anything away from IR3, though, we want it to be the following points. So the first thing is how to refer to sections. There's very specific guidance on how to refer to each different part or element of a European deliverable. Specifically parts, clauses, subclauses. We see everything. We see chapters, we see paragraph, we see verse, we see many different creative things. We try to standardize it just to make life easier for everybody. Another very important part is the verbal forms of expression tables. So that's tables 3 to 7. So this highlights what a requirement, recommendation, permission, statement of fact, and external constraint are. It makes it very clear. It gives you additional options if you don't want to use shall or should or may, or maybe they don't make sense in what you're saying. It gives you some other options as well. So definitely take a look through those and keep those in mind as you're drafting as well. Now, clause 1 is always your scope. It is an obligatory element. It has to be in there. It cannot be empty. And it cannot contain any requirements, recommendations, or permissions. It has to be just statements of fact. So this document describes, this document covers, this document contains, that kind of thing. Clause 2 is your normative references, and it is obligatory, but it can be empty because it's entirely possible, especially in TRs, that you don't have any normative references. IR3 gives you guidance on dated versus undated, and we've tried to make that clear as well in our drafting guidance. So do just bear those rules in mind and just check to see if you need to date your standards or if they can stay undated. There's also introductory wording for both a complete normative references clause and an empty clause as well. We've given you both in the simple template, so you just have to delete which one you don't want or you don't need, and off you go. Clause 3 is the same principle. So clause 3 is always your terms and definitions, or if you have them, your terms, definitions, and abbreviations as well. This is obligatory like clause 2, even if it's empty. And we give you guidance on how to draft your definitions in IR3, but the the main thing to remember with that is they have to be able to seamlessly replace the term in the text. So that's not the case. Your editor's going to come to you and just ask you to redraft things. We'll offer you guidance where we can, but just bear that in mind. There are specific rules on that. There's also special introductory wording given for four different options that you might have. So terms and definitions in this document only, in an external document only as well, in an external document and this document together, or if it's an empty clause. All four are given in IR3. I don't believe we gave all of them in the simple template just due to keeping the length a bit shorter, but just copy and paste which one you need and off you go. The rest of IR3 covers pretty much what you see in the screenshot on screen. So measurements and test methods, marking, labeling, and packaging, annexes, and the bibliography for specific rules, and then specific components of the text as well. So any lists, notes, examples, footnotes, all of that kind of thing have their own special rules and layouts. That's all covered in IR3 as well, also covered in our webinars. And just to finish this section before we go on to your questions, it also covers policy. So copyright, any copyright that you have, patents and the rules around that. And then the series of annexes at the end, there's an Annex A, which is a drafting checklist. The rest is all about your Annex Z. It's worth taking a look through those just to familiarize yourself with what is there. So that was a very, very quick refresh on getting started with drafting your standards. So now we're going to check the questions to see if anything has come in that we can answer. If you have any questions on today's content, please do send that in as well. But let's take a look at what has come in. Okay, so we'll start with which auto-numbering functions can we use in Word and which do we need to manually create, for example, figure and tables references. So we know that many drafters are using the auto-numbering functions and it can be a fantastic resource, especially if you've got so many figures and tables. It's very labor intensive to go through and manually do all of these. Absolutely, in your drafting, please use that function. If it will help you, please use it. What we would like to ask is when you submit, you just flatten them, basically. So remove them, make them just plain text. The reason being that while sometimes we're lucky and they don't corrupt, most of the time they unfortunately do because the file paths get changed or something behind the scenes gets changed. So do use it, but when you submit, just flatten it. That means that your editor won't then have to go through and try and figure out which table is which or which figure is which, that kind of thing. For auto numbering of lists, that we ask that you don't do at all. There's specific rules for lists, whether you use bullet point lists or dash lists or numbered lists. There are specific rules for that. So just familiarize yourself with that and try not to use it for the lists, but for tables and figures, go crazy with your drafting. And then when you submit it to us, just make sure that you get rid of them. And then linked to that same question, can we use auto-update references in text to paragraph numbers, for example? So for in-text citations to clauses, figures, that kind of thing, the same thing applies. You absolutely can use them, and we encourage it if you have many different in-text citations. The same principle applies when you submit to us. Please do flatten them. Please do remove those the automatic element to it. That is where we see most of the corruption happen. And when it corrupts, it's often very difficult for us to see which clause was referred to. It can sometimes be the case that we can check the PDF that you provide to us. A lot of the times, for my personal editing, I have not been able to do that because it's been corrupted even before the PDF has been made, especially for longer standards. So make sure, first of all, you're double checking that they're not corrupted before you make that PDF. And then make sure that you flatten them after you've made the PDF, just so that we at least have a record of what it should be. Otherwise, if things do get corrupted, we have to message you, we have to contact you, you have to provide us with that information. It can cause some delays. So hopefully that helps with that question. So please do send anything else in that you have, any more burning questions while I'm here. But else, perhaps while we wait for more questions, if any are coming, we can open the feedback poll.
Yes, the feedback poll is open. So, in the feedback poll, we have three short questions that we would like you to answer. We use the answer for improving our webinars in the future. So, please take a bit of your time to reply those questions. And in the meanwhile, the Q&A is, of course, still open. So, should you have questions on the content, feel free to submit these. As I've said in the beginning, the webinar has been recorded, so we will share with you the presentation and the recording later today.
So, of course, if there are no questions for today, if something pops up in the meantime, after today's webinar, you're more than welcome to send it to any editor that you have direct contact with. Or if you're not in contact with an editor, you can send it to production as well, production@cenelec.eu. And somebody will forward you to an editor who will be able to answer your question as well.
Okay, another question just came in from Tim.
Yes, it has. So when converting from a TS to an EN, what are the key documents issued if the content is not changing? I'm not sure I understand the full question, but largely if you are converting, from an editing perspective, the rules are still the same. IR3 still applies, the template still applies, that kind of thing. Gonzalo, perhaps there's something more procedural to add?
No, I think of course for the conversion you need to create a new work item and you need to go through the whole process. But in terms of editing rules, as you said, Amy, I don't think there is any major change in this respect because the TS follows the same drafting rules as for an EN.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, our we have to change the European the forwards on our side and so on, but this is something that we will cover on our side as well.
Yeah. Yep. The rules, the drafting rules, IR3 still applies. The template is the same for the standard or simple template. So yeah, it really is more procedural, that kind of thing.